Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brannon House.
And welcome to the broadcast on this September 16th, 2025. September 16th, 2025. I'm going to be joined by Shahram Hadian here in just one moment. There is so much in the news today that is breaking, and we just got breaking news from U.S. Senator Charles Grassley of Iowa that a whistleblower detailed Arctic Frost, a program inside the FBI, to target conservative Christian organizations and those tied to political organizations such as the Republican Party, et cetera, et cetera. And specifically, Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA was being, shall we say, targeted by the FBI. Folks, we have way more questions than we have answers. And while many people are debating whether Charlie Kirk was wearing a bulletproof vest or not, I don't think he was, based on the fact, have you ever worn one of those? I have. And many of you in the audience that have been in law enforcement, you have as well. And all of the turning and twisting while he was throwing hats, leaning forward, his shirt stretched, I see no indication he was wearing a bulletproof vest, but I'm willing to be proven wrong. I certainly cannot see proof he was wearing one with a plate, a metal plate in it. But that goes on. Everyone arguing online whether he was wearing one or not. And now they, of course, are asking legitimate questions. Did the shot come from the front, or was that exit wound on the neck what we're really seeing, an exit, as it is an exit wound? These are all questions that are fair, but why do the American people have to ask them? Because they don't trust their government. Why don't they trust their government? Because we've known pretty much since they blew the head off of President Kennedy in '63, the government is, well, a shadow government. I will play tonight on Brannon House Live audio of Glenn Beck talking about the day he questioned the George W. Bush administration and the war in the Middle East by the George W. Bush administration. His phone rang and he was summoned to the Oval Office the next morning by apparently a very angry George W. Bush, who proceeded to use a lot of four-letter words, so said Glenn Beck. And he was advised that, hey, don't worry about who comes before me. They'll be taking their orders from the same people I take my orders from. Wow. Well, I'm going to get into that tonight with Mark Mitchell of Rasmussen, because I don't think President Trump's in charge of this government. I don't think he's in charge of a lot of it. I don't think Kash Patel's even in charge of the FBI. I think there's a shadow government. And yet here we have today, it has to come from a U.S. senator. Why did this not come from Dan Bongino? Why did this not come from Kash Patel? Why does this have to come out in a hearing from Senator Charles Grassley? Thank you, Senator Charles Grassley of Iowa. But that our FBI was targeting conservative groups. Oh, wait a minute. You mean they weren't targeting the Islamists? No, they were holding interfaith dialogue with them, giving them the top FBI Directors Award, at least in the Mueller and Comey FBIs, but targeting Christians, conservatives. Well, my friends, we are involved in a civil war, and I detailed this in my 2018 documentary, Sabotage, that we're in a civil war. The left knows it, and it's gone hot. It's gone hot. It went hot some time ago with the left. How many Christians have we had killed sitting inside their churches in America? How many? We warned about this with a 2-day national security conference we did online. Was that 2017, I believe it was. And we brought in all these guys talking about how to respond to active shooters and how to be aware, and being aware of your surroundings and all of the things families and churches and conservatives and groups should talk about due to active shooters. And we actually got people asking us, why are you doing this? Why would you even need to do this? Well, again, that's 2017. I know some people, I think, are a little on the slow side, some of them. But the next day was the largest church shooting in American history. The very next day after our conference was the largest church shooting in American history. How many Christians have been killed sitting in their churches in America? How many conservatives have been beaten up, beaten to a pulp, blood all over their faces and shirts because they were wearing a hat that said, "Make America Great Again"? How many death threats have we received, just our organization alone? Vile death threats, triple X death threats. Oh, not just we want to kill you, but here's what we're going to do to your family. And it involves rape. We're going to throw acid in your face. Yeah. But the crooked, disgusting reprobates in the FBI didn't want to do anything. I remember us talking, and by the way, FBI, we have all the email exchanges with you guys going back several years where we were telling you about our threats. Well, Mr. House, that's very troubling, but we have to have a direct threat. So then we got one. Where they're threatening to throw acid. And then they started reaching out to, I think we'll start reaching out to some of your speakers. We won't bother with Jimmy D. Young, the threat said. He's a fraud. Really? But they sure sent a letter by the post office to Sharam, to Usama, to other people that included throwing acid. We turned that over to the FBI. Here's your direct threat, FBI, to which they came back and said, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do. Oh, I'm sorry, really? No, it's not that you couldn't do something. You didn't want to do something. You didn't want to do something. And now we find out that the FBI has actually been targeting conservative Christian organizations like we knew they were. That came out today. We are involved in a civil war. It's already started on the left. The right just doesn't seem to get it. Just like so many in the right. It's like, why do you need to have a conference on active shooters, huh? And then the next day, the largest church shooting in American history. Well, maybe that's why Einstein. I hate to say it, but the left, there's so many, on the right, so many on the right that are always a day late and a dollar short. They didn't want to know about Islam until after 9/11. Ooh, tell us about Islam. They don't want to talk about these issues before they happen. Oh, no, Brandon House, he's an extremist. That's conspiracy theory. Let's ridicule him and mock him. Even some of the useful idiots in the local church that I attended. That's crazy talk. But then some of those same people, after years of that, after the election of 2020, hey, can I get 5 or 6 copies of your book? Oh, I got friends that need to read that. Wait a minute, weren't you one of the clowns saying this was all crazy talk? Well, I'm glad you woke up, but how about an apology? Have you gone back to the other people and apologized to them? No, you see, this is where we have a problem. Then you might ask, why do we have this problem? I'll tell you why. Because Christians, so-called, and some of them maybe really are, they don't really understand evil. Isn't that something? We have the Bible, and the Bible tells us about the heart, and the Bible tells us about evil. The Bible tells us over and over about these things, and yet it seems to be the Christians that are the last ones, self-professing Christians, and some of them maybe truly are, I would think, but they seem to be the last people to understand evil. They seem to be the last people to understand Satanism. Demonic activity. What is real spiritual warfare? The left, they understand evil. They relish in it. They love it. They practice it. They are looking and inventing new ways to be involved in evil. So in one sense, maybe the right and the people on the right, conservatives, patriots, libertarians, Christians, depending on how people classify themselves, maybe they don't understand the left because they don't practice evil. Well, that's a good thing. I'll give them a gold star for that. But don't we have enough within the Bible and within the pages of history to understand evil and not always be wanting to understand the times and the philosophies and the ideas and the worldviews until 9/11 happens, until massive church shootings happen, until the LGBTQ start killing people? This goes back, frankly, to the failure, again, of Christians to read, to study. to be Bereans. An approved workman, rightly dividing the word of truth, understanding the times, worldview. And so they're always playing catch up. Always. Other than a very, very small percentage of us that really understand the ideas and worldviews and debates taking place and the agendas. The left has already started their civil war and it's gone hot. The right is still trying to figure out what's going on. Why are they doing this to us? Why do they hate us? Why do they hate? They're still asking, why do they hate us? They haven't even figured out why they hate you. We know. Galatians, I become your enemy because I tell you the truth. We're already involved in a civil war. And it seems like no matter what happens, the right, and I'm thankful for this, isn't taking the bait. They're not getting in the street to engage. So let's kill Charlie Kirk, I guess the left says, and the government, because I think the government's behind this in some level. Don't fool yourself. Oh, I know. Everyone thinks a lot of folks think Israel's behind this. We'll get into that. A lot of misinformation about that. We'll get into that. But they cannot seem to get the right to take the bait. And I'll give them another gold star for that one. So let's take out Charlie Kirk. Maybe that'll engage them. The left is begging to get in the streets with the right. And now we have the call of sending the National Guard to Chicago, and the mayor there is pounding his chest. I don't know, maybe that's what it'll be. I don't know. But I'm telling you this right now. We're in a civil war. I tried to tell people that in 2018. I actually had some clowns say, do you actually want to put the word civil war in the subtitle of the documentary Sabotage? The next one. I had Sabotage, then Siege. And I actually put in the subtitle for that one that came out in late 2020, I put in there in the subtitle World War III and Civil War. You really want to put those two things in there, Civil War and World War III? I'm like, why not? Why not? I don't know. Do you really think we're in a civil war? Well, if I didn't think we were in it, I wouldn't have put it in the subtitle. You really think we're headed to World War III? No, I think we're already in World War III. And that's what gray terror is all about. That's what attacking your food supply and your railroad and your transportation. And now it's kicked in to increased civil war in America right before we apparently are going to go to World War. Isn't that just coincidental? You mean we might be on the verge of a civil war in America before a world war? Who could possibly want that? Oh, maybe your enemies? Iran, China, maybe the government at the high levels who actually are more loyal to China, to Marxism, to Islam than they are to America. And now we have a report out that came out in April of this year. I'll deal with it tonight too, April 7th, this report showing 50 and 56% somewhat think justified murder against Elon Musk and President Trump. We're in big trouble. We'll be right back.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. WorldviewTube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the WorldviewTube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the WorldviewTube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the WorldviewTube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
You're watching WorldviewTube, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brannon House.
All right, welcome back. We go to Sharam. Look at this. This was a group that put out this report in April of this year. Murder justification, 31% and 38% of respondents stated it would be at least somewhat justified to murder Elon Musk and President Trump, respectively. These effects were driven by respondents that self-identified as left of center, with 50% and 56% at least somewhat justifying murder for Elon Musk and President Trump, respectively. The psychological and ideological correlations with assassination culture. These beliefs are highly correlated with one another, as well as with the justification of the murder of United Healthcare CEO and hyper-partisan left-wing ideology. And folks, I'm telling you right now, your own government has been infiltrated by people that are more loyal and are loyal to China, to Iran, and they are in place, fanning the flames for civil war. And I believe they are involved in targeting conservatives and Christians. And now we have the word today from U.S. Senator Charles Grassley that indeed the FBI was targeting conservative groups, including Charlie Kirk's group. Here is Grassley, and then we'll get a response from Shahram Hadian, among other topics. Listen carefully now to what's being said here by a U.S. Senator about your FBI, which has not changed one iota. And the two guys running it, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, often look like deer in the headlights. You really think they're in charge, guys?
American gangs like MS-13. Now, well, it's well understood that your predecessor left you an FBI infected with politics. I'm going to provide examples of that today, including making public new whistleblower records. At your nomination hearing, I made public records that whistleblowers provide me about Arctic Frost. Arctic Frost was the FBI case opened and approved by antitrust Trump FBI agent Thibault. Arctic Frost then became Jack Smith's elector case against then citizen Trump and now President Trump. These new records show that Arctic Frost was much broader than just an electoral matter. The case was expanded to Republican organizations. Some examples of the group that Ray FBI sought to place under political investigation included the Republican National Committee, Republican Attorney General's Association, and various Trump political groups. In total, 92 Republican targets, including Republican groups and Republican-linked individuals, were placed under investigative scope of Arctic Frost. On that political list was one of Charlie Kirk's groups, Turning Point USA. In other words, Arctic Frost wasn't just a case to politically investigate Trump. It was the vehicle by which partisan FBI agents and Department of Justice prosecutors could achieve their partisan ends and improperly investigate the entire Republican political apparatus. So today, Senator Johnson and I are making these records public for the entire country to see, and I hope a lot of people are interested in seeing what government can do when various agencies have a political agenda. My investigative work has also exposed the political way in which Peter Navarro was investigated.
All right, we'll hold it there. Joining me now is Shahram Hadian. Shahram, welcome to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Brandon, for having me.
We got so many topics to cover. Let's move quickly. What are your thoughts on what you're hearing today? The breaking news from U.S. Senator Charles Grassley. The FBI was targeting conservative groups, conservative political groups, and the Christian and conservative patriotic group of Charlie Kirk. Particularly, by the way, in light of the fact that you and I were ignored
Brandon.
over and over. We were totally ignored with the threats against us. And when we went to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, their response to that was nothing. When a gunman came into our conference, we turned it into an international story deliberately. We put it out there as press releases and put it everywhere. You and I said we would do that when we got home, and we did. And we knew what the response would be. And then the cowards came out and wanted to act tough, including the attorney general of the state, who didn't want to do anything about it when he was being yelled at by a state representative on the phone who was in the building that night. Then he wanted to do something after he was caught, with our national PR campaign to expose it. But that night, who was asked to leave town? We were asked by the Sioux Falls officials to leave town. We were asked to leave town. We were tired and exhausted, but we were asked to leave town. Did the FBI ever interview me or you about this? Never. Now we know why. I would say the FBI probably was involved in our targeting, and had we not hired our own security that night, as the head of the security we hired said, I think it'd be different. And I think our FBI was involved in it. I think the FBI let that guy come in. That's my opinion, because the one police report said they saw him drive in and act erratically in 2 parking slots and move and then go in. No one stopped him. Why? I think the FBI was told the cops to stand down, let that guy go in there. That's my feeling. And FBI doesn't like it, prove me wrong. Sharam?
Well, I think that is highly probable for multiple reasons. First of all, we remember what happened to Pamela Geller in Garland, Texas. We know that the FBI was fully aware and, in fact, had the informant that was a part of that threat, that they did not do anything to warn Pamela Geller or local law enforcement or her security. They were going to let them shoot up Texas. We know the situation, as you said, with us, with multiple threats that you have had, that we have had, documented threats that we've had, that they did nothing. I want to go back a step further. This is really going back before even Obama, in my opinion. But if you go back to the Obama administration and the purging that we know happened in 2009, that was when I think the death blow was given to the FBI and much of the Justice Department, Brandon, where the targeting of conservatives, the targeting of those people that speak out has been going on. The politicizing has been going on. I said the same thing as you did. I said I have no confidence in Kash Patel or Dan Bongino or any of these people until we see credible evidence that they are going to actually clean house. That has not happened. And I believe that what Senator Grassley exposed today is just the tip of the iceberg as far as the enemies within. The enemies within. Not saying that every FBI agent is this or that, but certainly the agency is, I think, beyond repairable, beyond corrupt, and it is now potentially, as you said, allowing these things to happen. And the question would be, how much intel did they have before this assassination of Charlie Kirk? How much intel did they sit on and did nothing on when we see groups like the one that you and I talked about earlier, the Armed Queers of Salt Lake City, for example, and other groups that are calling for political assassinations, and they do nothing. It's all lip service until they actually do something, and I don't trust them one bit, just like you.
Yep, sure don't. And by the way, let's go to that, the issue. We have a lot of this up at worldviewreport.com. If you're like, I don't know what he's talking about, armed queers. Well, if you go to worldviewreport.com, you will find that we have linked several articles today about it at worldviewreport.com. So let's go to this issue before we go to the issue of Israel, which is all over the place today. And so many people wanting to blame Israel for Charlie Kirk's murder, which I don't see that at all, the government of Israel doing that. I don't know I just don't see it happening. And some of the things being said about this aren't even true, according to the people that were involved in even one of Charlie Kirk's producers. So we'll cut through some of those lies here in 1 second. Armed Queers Salt Lake City, founded by ex-gun control activist. Who are Armed Queers Salt Lake City? Utah-based trans militia group under scrutiny at the leading social media account on day of Charlie Kirk murder. And by the way, Kash Patel did announce today in the hearing that they are investigating well over 20 groups that seem to have foreknowledge that this was coming. And you're telling me that the FBI didn't have foreknowledge? I thought the Patriot Act and all that stuff was supposed to make it so that we are all so safe. And the fusion centers. You're telling me that no local law enforcement, no FBI, no local DHS fusion center put Charlie Kirk into any of these databases and searched and saw something big is going to happen tomorrow at Charlie Kirk's event and all these other warnings. Our government didn't see any of that? I don't buy it one bit. Before we get to the trans queers, do you buy that? I mean, I thought that's what the Patriot Act was all about, was to stop terrorist attacks before they happen.
Brandon, there's no way that I buy that. There's two things, right? There's two options. One is gross negligence, gross incompetence. And the second one, which is, of course, worse, would be, as you said, that there's a stand down, that there's orders that are given, that there's a permissibility from the deep state to now target. We know, right? We know that there's more information coming out about kill lists. We know that these groups, I started 2 years ago, I started talking about the trans terrorism. You and I have been talking about the red-green access terrorism. But yet, again, people will say, oh, well, you know, it's incompetence. I mean, how much can you give them the benefit of that? You brought up Sioux Falls earlier. Do you remember one part of our story? Do you remember the day after, right? So our event was over the weekend, and the Monday after the heavily armed Muslim man came into our conference there, remember the FBI and the Joint Terrorism Task Force, which means local PD and FBI representative, went to his house and interviewed him. You remember the moronic question they asked him when they said, did you have intent? They asked him, did you have intent to shoot up or harm anybody? Now he said, no. And that was it.
Yeah. And do you remember,
So
do you remember the information officer with the Sioux Falls Police Department?
Yeah.
We have the video.
Yes.
The information officer with the Sioux Falls Police Department, when questioned about this by the press, on camera said he was just practicing his freedom of speech.
Yes, remember his First and Second Amendment rights. That's all he was doing coming into your conference. Yet you and I would have been strung up if we had gone into a Muslim conference and done the same thing. We would have been crucified and sent to federal prison for years had we done the same thing.
Which again proves to you the FBI wants the rise of all of this. They want this targeting. They want this killing because the federal government at the highest levels has been infiltrated by the red-green axis. Now, we come back, we're going to get to queer resistance. And folks, listening by radio, the Q for queer is a hammer and sickle, and they have the red star. This is a communist queer group, and they are armed, and they have an agenda. We'll tell you what their 6 principles are when we come back. Don't go away. Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at www.foundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview. All right, welcome Welcome back. Glad you're with us. Worldview Radio, our website, worldviewradio.com. And tonight I'll have on the lead pollster of Rasmussen, Mark Mitchell, with us, talking about the polls related to assassination culture, heading towards civil war. We're in civil war now already. Just one side hasn't figured it out. The left has. And the fourth turning. All that tonight on Brandon House Live, 7:30 Central, worldviewtube.com. Now, our national conference is going forward, and that is Friday night, October 3rd, Saturday, October 4th. Yes, we have security. But yes, I know Charlie Kirk's people had security too. Folks, the bottom line is if they want any of us dead, we're dead. That's just it. That's just it. One of my friends from high school I talked to yesterday, he's like, does this concern you? How do you deal with this being, you know, that you've gotten threats in the past and you're on all of these outlets and talking about what you're talking about? I said, you know what? You can't stop it. You can take precautions, but you can't stop it. If they want you dead, you're going to be dead. Whether they poison the food that you eat at a restaurant, which is why we never go to restaurants on any kind of schedule. Whether they have someone figure out what you're doing when you do go out, walk down the street, and they spray something in your face. It makes it look like you fell over dead with a heart attack. Hello, Andrew Breitbart. Or they have you shot, or it looked like a carjacking. Oh, he died in an apparent carjacking. Really, was it? So, folks, the bottom line is you can't go around worrying. You got to take precautions, right? But we're Christians. And as Christians, we know this. To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. I win either way. Whether I live or whether I die, I win either way. They lose. So, folks, we're moving forward. Yes, we'll have security. And we'll hopefully have a lot of people praying for us. But we're moving forward with our conference. And we hope you'll join us. Don't let these guys win. Don't let the government power elite win. The shadow government, whatever you want to call them. Show up. Be with us. Worldviewstore.com to register. People are still registering from all over the country. Thursday night's the optional concert banquet keynote address by Hadia. And then the Friday night conference, Saturday, 22nd annual Worldview Weekend. We already have booked the building for next year. And can I just tell you, next year we're going to the real Bible Belt. Should I just tell them, Logan? Yeah, we've already booked the Waukesha Expo Center for our 23rd annual Worldview Weekend. We're going to move it to Milwaukee next year, to the Waukesha Expo Center, to the real Bible Belt. Wouldn't it be funny that we get there by next year, the South is awake? Because the South is asleep. The slothful South, the slumbering South, they're so asleep. But the North isn't, because they've been dealing with this for a while. So we're going to take this to the real Bible Belt. Milwaukee, Wisconsin is in the real Bible Belt, folks, because they've actually had to put their faith to the test. So that's next year. We'll give you the date soon. But if you can't join us, if you cannot join us for this one live in the building, you can live stream it if you have a membership to our vault. Full details available at worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault. Let's go to this. These armed queers, as they're calling themselves. Armed queers. Just for anyone that's new, I'm not. That used to be, you know, we played a game as a kid, Smear the Queer. Remember playing that as a kid? And that was considered in the 70s when I was a kid a derogatory term. Okay, it was like, you don't say that. That's not nice. No, they call themselves that. What do you think the Q is in LGBTQ? Okay, they literally have, for those listening by radio, their own website, their own literature, Armed Queers, and they have a rainbow coming out of the end of the AR-15 or whatever kind of rifle it is. They have a rainbow shooting out at the end for the muzzle blast. They have 6 principles. Number 1, the armed and militant protection of queer and trans communities and all oppressed people. So now they need to take up arms. Listen now, they need to take up arms against people that they perceive to be oppressed. How are they oppressed? Because there are people out here like us saying, I'm sorry, some child that thinks who's a boy thinks he's a girl, that's fantasy. Someone's brainwashed them. The parent, the mother, somebody, whoever's done this is mentally unhinged. But that's oppression. So now to deal with the free speech of people like you, listening friend, Sharam, myself, others, Charlie Kirk, they have to take up arms. So notice they are openly telling you we're going to pick up arms against people who are oppressing us, in their view, with their speech. Wow. We speak more truth, they get more guns. I guess that's how that goes. Number two, the end of capitalistic oppression and exploitation. Movement toward a socialist society. How are any of us who are into the free market system oppressing any of these people? Go get a job. Go get a job. Oh, maybe you might want to take off the makeup guy, put on some pants instead of a dress, and then see if you can get hired. Good luck. 3, binary and biological essentialism, not assimilation. Transliberation from the gender binary. Transliberation from the gender binary and biological essentialism, not assimilation. Okay? Housing as a human right and necessity not to be profited from. Put an end to landlordship. Oh, yeah. Again, this is just communism. Take the property. Nobody's going to want to be a landlord if there's no profit. How are they going to pay for the upkeep? And you know these queers would be on the phone with you every day. My toilet won't stop running. The faucet drips all night long. I got cockroaches. I mean, can you imagine having to answer to these queers every day about their complaints on the housing? How do I change the light bulb? Really? Can you send your maintenance guy over to change the light bulb? I have a friend that's into properties. One of the tenants called, we have flies in the house. Flies all in the house. They asked, where's the garbage can? It's right outside the back door. Well, why don't you move the garbage can away from the back door? Because guess what? When you open the back door, all of those flies are right there and they come into the house. They moved the trash can. Guess what happened? No more flies in the house. Yeah. Do you really think a landlord can keep property, pay taxes, and keep it up with no profit? What would be their motive to keep nice property? But again, you're dealing with debased people. They don't think. 5, abolish police and prisons as they serve as nothing but oppressors. And then 6, end of bourgeoisie, assimilist LGBTQ organizations. The end of bourgeoisies, assimilationist, people make you assimilate, LGBTQ organizations, the start of radical queer and trans organizing. Now, folks, this is nothing but the Communist Party USA, weaponizing the queers, who they've either put on drugs, brainwashed, they have raped them, they have groomed them until their conscience is seared, and then you give them a gun. But by the way, I warned about this in my series on the Nazis and said, don't forget that some of the highest people in the Nazi movement were queers, transgender. Why do you have to put queers and transgender in high places in the Nazi regime? Because it takes someone whose conscience has been seared to carry out mass murder. Hello. Sharam, your comments? Sharam, you there? I don't know where Sharam went. Well, thankfully I can keep going.
Stand by.
Up.
There you are, Brandon.
I'm back. How much meat did we lose?
A lot.
How much is the lot?
About 5 minutes.
5 minutes?
We've been trying to connect with you. We've been trying to talk with you guys, but we got you now.
All right, thank you. I made some amazing points in that 5 minutes. You're going to have to go back and listen to more. I was reading the 6 points of the queer trans. And it's just nothing but the Communist Party USA, folks. Nothing but the Communist Party USA. And as I said, I'm going to repeat it real quick for the radio audience. This is why we were talking about the queers that were in the Nazi regime. Remember, several years ago, I did a whole series on the Nazis, and I said, there's a reason why at the high levels of the Nazis they were homosexuals and homosexuals and transgenders. Really, one was known as Erwin Lutzer writes about it in his book Hitler's Cross. Why do you put trans people, queers, at the highest level of a government? Because their conscience has been seared. Why do you groom these kids and then rape them? So you can sear their conscience. And then once you've seared their conscience, you give them a rifle. You give them an automatic or semi-automatic. And you tell them, go kill the Christian. Who they're really angry at because their conscience has been seared and they're tired of hearing the Christian preach the Bible. And some of them at this point are fully demonized, so they really hate the Christian. Sharam, you want to comment, please?
No, you're absolutely correct. It goes back to the first understanding of our spiritual warfare. Number one, we are in a spiritual battle. But number two, again, I really appreciate you emphasized earlier in the program, Brandon, that we are in a civil war. I agree with you 100%. It is unbelievable how many people fail to understand this, that they have declared war on us. The Red-Green Axis has declared war. Islam has declared war. And now these armed queers, again, trans terrorism. This is exactly what you're talking about. And by the way, I just found out that particularly the leader, I don't know if you guys covered this or not, but the leader of this armed queers for Salt Lake City from Iran is an Iranian trans, I believe, because I don't think it's a girl. They're claiming that it's, but this is connected to, in their video, they're bragging about the training. How many times have we said that they are being trained by foreign operatives, whether in this case they're bragging about the training that they're getting from the Marxists in Cuba, or whether we have seen the training and the connection to China, communist China. We've seen the connection to the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas or ISIS. I mean, so my argument has been, just like with the shooter, if this kid is the shooter of Charlie Kirk, there's no way that this training and this activism has happened in a vacuum. There's no way. First of all, we don't even know what they're saying on the dark web, behind the scene, in the chat rooms, on Discord, and all these other gaming chat rooms that I've been starting to look into this more. And the more that I read on it, the more disturbing it is of what potentially is being discussed and planned. But again, this goes back to your point. How come the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the United States government cannot, they can track 6,000 Christians and patriots for 4 years who were in Washington, D.C., and bother visiting our houses and harassing us, but they can't figure this stuff out? And they can't? No, it's not that they can't. They've been told not to.
Well, they're advertising
really
openly.
Alarming.
They're openly advertising. The revolution will not be voted in. That's it. This is on their own literature. The revolution will not be voted in. Joined armed queers. Get organized and educated with fellow Marxists. You would think that would be a group that the FBI might start tracking. Oh, I'm sorry, we can't. We're too busy tracking Turning Point USA and other Christian and conservatives and moms going to school board meetings to complain about this kind of very thing, the grooming of their children. But there they were, telling you it wasn't going to happen by vote, it's going to happen by armed revolution. Come join the armed queers. Can you imagine if we put up posters that said the Christendom of America will not happen through the vote. It will only happen through armed Christians. Join armed Christians to Christianize America. You'd be getting a knock on your door by the FBI that day, right, Sharam?
Yeah, absolutely, 100% guaranteed.
And the media would be all over it. But all this seemed to happen kind of like out of sight, out of mind. We'll be back with more. Now, next, what about Israel? Boy, they're getting blamed for a lot. Don't go away. Hello, I'm Brandon House. Melissa and I have been taking Bella Grace, this powerful elixir, since last fall, 2023. The results have been amazing. My hands would crack and bleed, deep cuts and cracks every winter for years. No matter what we did, we couldn't get them to stop cracking and bleeding. This year, I took Bella Grace, no cracking, no bleeding. My acid reflux, gone. Haven't had to take a Pepsid. My hair growth, the last 2 times I had my hair cut, the lady had to use thinning shears on my hair. That's amazing. We've also received incredible feedback from you, our listening audience, and the impact it's had for you. This is loaded with astaxanthin. That's a powerful antioxidant. Collagen, but top grade collagen. Studies show 95% of it is being absorbed in the body because of the way they develop it. Then we have something called cat's claw. That's an anti-inflammatory from a vine in Peru. It's the bark,
10 seconds.
and it's an anti-inflammatory. There are about 80 clinical trials on Bella Grace. Please get a subscription now and save. MelissaHousebg.com. All right, welcome back. So queer resistance, then the Q is with a hammer and sickle, and then they have the red star. And you know what they're saying? Agitate, educate, organize. And they have a lecture coming up September 27th. September 27th, 200 Central Campus Drive, Salt Lake City, Utah. They've got a... Logan, can we find a reporter to go there for us and film this? It's in Salt Lake City, Utah. Let's see if we get Phil Lyman or some other person to go there and film this and take in the queer lecture. Armed queers. Agitate, educate, and organize. September 27th, 5 to 6:30. Wow. Well, let's see if we can cover that. Let's go real quick to Israel. Everything turns out to be blame the Jews, even when there's no proof. Now, I'm not here to defend the Israeli government. I guess they can do that themselves. But, you know, when you start blaming Israel's government, it starts to feed anti-Semitism. Well, apparently, Candace Owens said that there were threats made to Charlie Kirk during an intense interview with Bill Ackman in the Hamptons weeks ago. Owens claims Kirk was having a change of heart on Israel before his death and says he was contacted by Bibi Netanyahu. Quote, I know that Charlie was offered a ton of money in this moment, a ton of money, end quote. Ackman has denied the claims, calling them totally false. And in fact, here is a long thread put out last night by him, which is too long to read. But he said this afternoon at Real Candace Owens slandered me by accusing me of staging an interview or an intervention with Charlie Kirk in which threats were made with respect to his supposed involving stance on Israel at an event I hosted in the Hamptons. Candace intimated I was blackmailed, that I, quote, blackmailed Charlie. Okay, he says that's not true. And if you want, we even have another bookmark by Andrew Colvett. I think this is his own producer, Charlie's own producer, right? And he said, I've been asked by the Bill Ackman event. I have been asked about the Bill Ackman event more than a few times now. So I asked our staff who was traveling with Charlie to find out what's true and what's not. His team was with him 100% of the time when he wasn't in the hotel room. Here's what they told me. Quote, Bill never yelled at Charlie, never pressed him on BB, never gave him a list of Charlie's offenses against Israel, end quote. This is all garbage. But this is what's going around today, feeding this anti-Semitism, which seems like a great distraction instead of concentrating on, I don't know, China, that's been on over 100 college campuses, and I have the article to prove it. All the Chinese money coming in here. And then, of course, you got Iran and the red-green axis, and then the government itself, which today we find out was tracking on conservative groups like Turning Point. So let's use the Jews as a scapegoat, Sharam.
Brandon, number one, Candace Owens, this shows you that she has been spreading her poison. We know lots of Christians and right-wing conservatives that are getting poisoned by this vitriol and this demonic hatred that she spews about all Jews are demonic and Israel is demonic and all the things she said. As I told you last week, I'm just waiting for her to come out publicly and say it's just time to round up the Jews and get rid of them, because that's how much demonic hatred I believe is in her. And I think that part of what has influenced her is her conversion to Catholicism, is an influence of replacement theology that has come from whether her husband, whether Catholicism. But this is ludicrous, Brandon. This is ludicrous, where Charlie Kirk, outspoken supporter of Israel, outspoken supporter and would debate so many students on campus about the whole lie about Gaza and about Palestine. It is absolutely, the question is, who is funding Candace Owens to spread this poison? And it is absolutely what you said, with whether it's the Qatari money, whether China, Iran. By the way, just real quick, going back to this, the trans queer of Salt Lake, I'm doing a deep dive on this Iranian gal. She is a communist. I am convinced that she is actually a plant of the Iranian government.
Well, can you do some research?
The more that I'm reading on her, I am convinced
can you do that tonight?
Here in the United States as an operative of the Iranian government to go in, because there's nothing in her background that I can see that would have her be so vitriol about trans issues.
Well,
and
Shahram, can you be on tonight about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you be on about that tonight? Do some more digging on her? But here, Data Republican is reporting that the State Department and the UN, the State Department, which we know is filled with communists, poor Marco Rubio can't clean them out fast enough. The State Department and UN has ties to armed queers. Their SLC leader now confirmed. Why would the UN, which is filled with communists and Islamists, have ties to the leader of armed queers, according to this report?
Bingo. And the Muslims are doing the same thing, right? So again, in the red-green axis, the Muslims, anything that Islamic world can do to vilify Israel, to vilify the Jewish people, and to dehumanize them so that they can exterminate the Jews, they're doing. And they're doing it through the trans movement. This is, again, why when I said trans terrorism 2+ years ago, it is ultimately the same agenda as Islamic terrorism. There's no difference in it other than it's part of their deception in that lower house to side with this movement. There's, again, I'll be more than happy to come on tonight. There's nothing in her background that would communicate that she has some allegiance to trans people.
Sorry to interrupt. Listen to this.
The Iranian regime.
Shahram, listen to this. It is now coming out that the armed queers in 2025, May Day, they had a trip to Cuba.
Yes. Isn't that incredible? Wait a second. Brandon, I thought it was illegal for Americans to go to Cuba. Unless you go to Cuba for humanitarian. By the way, I went to 2 short-term mission trips to Cuba. Do you know how much I was grilled when we came back?
I bet you were.
About our ties?
They returned home with a discipline for revolution and a belief that victory is ours. A May Day march of 600,000 Cubans where crowds waved pride flags, portraits of Lenin, Che, and MLK. All right, we got to get into this more tonight because I think it's coming down to the red-green axis. Closing comment, Shahram?
Agreed 100%. This is once again the red-green axis. It's just that they are utilizing this because you said it really well. They can arm them and brainwash them.
Yeah, they can sever their conscience, groom them, rape them, and then hand them a gun after their conscience has been seared. It's really now the red, green, and pink axis. It's terrible. Stay tuned for Crosstalk. Take care. Joining me back is Shahram Hadian. He's on the VCY side. You know, this is really it. It's the red, green, and pink axis. Wow. Let me see if I can play some of this. I'm going to hear it for the first time. Hopefully there's not a bunch of cursing or anything, guys. But let me play a little bit of this from, I guess, some of their meetings, these armed queers. What does the SLC stand for, Logan? SLC, armed queers. What's the SLC? Does anyone know? He'll look it up. But let me play a little bit of the audio. Again, hopefully there's no cursing. Here we go. Listen.
Hi, we're Armed Queers. My name's Connor.
My name is Ramia.
And we have just returned from the annual May Day Brigade that is put on by the National Network on Cuba. We are a member organization of the National Network on Cuba. And the May Day Brigade is annual brigade, as I said earlier, where we go to Cuba. We interact with people from a bunch of different countries. And most importantly, we learn from the Cuban people. And we go to the May Day March.
Yes. I think this trip of ours was so incredibly informative and educational. And I think what is incredible is that these brigades have been hosted for decades, right? They've been hosted since the 20th century. And it's really to ensure that US activists are building this kind of solidarity with the Cuban people and essentially we're breaking that propaganda, breaking that barrier of information that the US is trying to hide from us about just how successful the revolution is, and also just how steadfast and passionate the Cuban people are in protecting the revolution.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to the dual purpose of our trip. Simultaneously, we were there in Cuba to learn of the successes of the revolution and bring it back home with us. But simultaneously, we also were bringing to Cuba stories of the hardships in the US and of the oppression we face here from our government. And I think that helped also teach the Cuban people about our situation.
Okay, Logan, can we pull the clip to play tonight of my friend, the late Ron Carlson, who passed away in June of 2011, talking about Cuba? Really? You went to Cuba to tell the Cubans how oppressed you are here in America? You little twit. Ron Carlson asked a bunch of the pastors, how come it is you guys all get along when you're from so many different denominations? They said, well, when you spend time in prison together, you tend to get along. Ron was supposed to be in Cuba when he died. Providentially, God did not have him go to Cuba. Thankfully, he died here in America versus over there and his family trying to get his body back, et cetera, et cetera. Ron told us over and over about the persecution of Christians in Cuba. Overwhelming persecution and oppression of Christians. But see, that's not oppression to them. You remember, everything is opposite. Oppression to them is Christianity. Oppression to them is Christianity. Liberation to them is the elimination of Christianity. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Also, you need to understand, I believe Donald Trump, if he really wants to handle this, we need a independent, and I want to be on it. We need an independent, not something tied to the government. We need an independent anti-American task force. We need an anti-American task force to root out the communist groups, the subversive groups, their funding, and who's doing it. Because if you were, I believe you could arrest most of these people and charge them because they're telling you they're here to overthrow the government. We need an independent task force of average Americans. Well, average in that we're not tied to the government. Myself, Trevor Loudon, Shahram Hadian, Annie Cyrus, Usama Dakdok, Dave Gobbets. This would just be the beginning. Maybe that's what we ought to do. Maybe what I ought to do is form my own independent anti-American task force, and we will start to investigate who these groups are, who's funding who, and tie them all the way back to the elected officials who are being funded by these revolutionary insurrectionists. Remember, they always call you what they are. I hate to tell you this, my friends. The killing is not going to end by the left onto the right. By their own admission, they are armed. It will not happen, their revolution, through the voting box, but it will happen through the killing of, well, their oppressors. Is that not what they're saying? Armed conflict? Armed queers? Yeah. And reality is, this goes all the way back to the cultural Marxist. Something the pro-family groups, I tried to explain to them 20 years ago. They didn't want to listen. They did. They might be better ahead today, but they're not. Take care.
Colonel Rob Manus has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician,